Testing, testing. All right, here we go. What is up, everybody? This is Edward back with another video. And today, I know it's late. It's 1:34 in the morning. Shout out to Art and Stall, but I wanted to go over this real quick. This is really for the folks as they'll wake up. Shout out to Norris who was waiting. Definitely appreciate that. Dardar as well. So we're actually going to do an article review. Mike V would call it a peer review. And yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So this is an article that so remember the dude that did the play-by-play yesterday on, not J Speed, but the other guy. His name is Omowale, Afrika. You know, he's got 1,400 subs. I gotta go through his stuff, but we're not gonna do that today. What we're gonna do, he decided to take the time to promote the article, to basically share the article that he was referring to. And yeah, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna do a first time reaction. I have not read this article, okay, and I did that on purpose. I actually haven't even read the post he put. I just wanted to do my first reaction and my first thoughts because I like y'all seeing me think off the cuff, like you all seeing how I react in a very organic way. Not to say there's anything wrong with any other way doing it, but it is what it is. So we're gonna give him, the opportunity. If you want to support the PayPal is in the PayPal's in the description. If you want to see the original article's in the description. I took the time to make sure that was there. And obviously my Cash App, what you want to do that is in the description as well. So all that good stuff. For those of y'all that don't know, if y'all are new, make sure y'all subscribe. Shout out to the few for the couple of subscribers, my newer subscribers. We are growing ever so slowly. I'm definitely gonna implement some stuff to increase that. Shout out to Stacker Star for the $20 Cash App. He kind of hit me right before I actually checked it, before I ended the last stream. And yeah. And shout out to Lowcast too. Throw Lowcast some subscriptions. Definitely y'all go over there and subscribe to Lowcast. And well, JC, we're gonna keep this professional. We're gonna keep it on point. Give me one moment. Something I need to do real quick. In there. Throw this in there. Throw this in there. We're gonna throw this in there. We're gonna throw this in there. I'm gonna let that ride for right now. All right, so that we're gonna let ride. Turn this off a little bit. All right, so yeah, we're gonna do a little quick peer review and get that started. Boom. For once, no need for me to do the damn no need for me to do the damn. Well, let me do the post. Let me do the post he did first. Let's read that together. Because I actually just saw this because he mentioned, quote unquote, mentioned me. And he felt the need to put my name in this. I mean, it is what it is. I wasn't really the one that blazed them the hardest, to be honest with you. But whatever. All right. That's also funny having that, because y'all can't see if I like drop off. That's funny now I think about it. This actually hides. This is actually really smart, because in case you bring somebody up and they want to do the dumb shit, Anyway, here. Yeah. Sorry, give me 1 second. This is like being stupid. Oh yeah, I forgot I gotta drop this anyway. Alright. I was gonna do the post, but I mean if this is gonna be dumb. Okay, so we're having some technical difficulties. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I'm gonna read that. I'll read that part on my own. So anyway, like I told Obsidian and Edward during my recent visit to the Bernard Riley show, I've written about the topic before and have given several lectures and interviews on this topic. When I spoke about the situation with the sisters, there were no men giving me pushback. Now I'm putting the situation with the brothers under the same lens. The only the thing the men are saying is, why aren't you talking about black women? I'm balanced and honest in my critique, but black men and black women be just more. I'll share a link in here with you as well. I'm looking forward to the opportunity and exchange the ideas in the topic in the future. So I really, you know what, I'm gonna leave some of my commentary for at the end. I will say this. I promise you, he didn't go in there talking about they're on some semen fill bullshit. I promise you he didn't say that, like an equivalent of black women basically kissing the ass of white females. In fact, I let me do this. I'm gonna get my commentary up front before I read it. So we'll see if I got them pegged right. So here's the thing. You know, you can very I did the play by play for a reason. You can very clearly go in and see that he came to talk to us in bad faith. He thinks he's the first person that is quote unquote pro black that's ever been spoken. Okay. He's the first person to ever do that. And see, here's what's ironic. The irony is he could probably go into Jason Black's channel and talk all this shit about us, right? But one thing that's about Jason Black is Jason Black talks worse about black women in many ways than we do. And in most ways than we do. Now, it doesn't matter if you balance it out by saying the niggas ain't shit, because for the most part, we say we know a lot of black men ain't shit. Here's the issue. The issue, the thing that people always do is they make it sound like because we critique black women as if we don't critique black men. The difference is black men don't circle the wagons around bad black men. Black women circle the wagons around bad black women. That is actually what the problem is here. That is actually what creates the quote unquote gender war. Is people like to say, well, what about what black men are doing? Well, the issue, like even with Jace, we were talking about, the issue with that is black women are sexually selecting black men, the very black men they're complaining about. It does fuck the idea that black men, whoever is the niggas that are not getting pussy. I don't care about that. The point is, and I've asked Obsidian this, and he has said absolutely correct, that the black manosphere doesn't have an argument if black women are perfectly happy with their choices. He doesn't have an argument if the women are happy with their choices. They clearly are not. And they complain about it. The problem is they want to lay the blame on all black men when the reality is it is the black men they sexually choose. You see, we can make the argument that Jay Speed's trying to make that black men are just complaining because they can't get pussy, which is always why he prefaced shit on, well, when your nuts get heavy and your dick get hard, you know what to do. See, that's a deflection, because the truth is our argument is not based on black men not getting sex. Our argument is based on black women blaming all black men because of their sexual choices. Now, people can make the argument that black men are doing the same thing. No, they're not, because black men don't validate that shit. At the end of the day, you know, we know the like I say, deception is the issue. This is why I jumped on PJ Washington so hard. Because once you demonstrate there's no deception, then at that point you made a choice. You made a choice. And if we detect a pattern, that's why Ty City was trying to call me out when it come to Love Dorsey, because he saw an interruption in the pattern. He said, you're validating the very women you're complaining about. But see, the issue is I've always complained about software, not hardware. I prefer black women tatted up? No. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, that's what the problem with the community is. The problem is the software, not hardware. And I've always maintained that, which is why me and him had a disagreement on that, because he didn't understand that about me. And I've made that clear over and over and over again. It's also said that we make excuses for black men by over jumping on black. That's not true, because we argue with each other all the time. We have these, you don't see women really having these internal battles over there like we do in any situation. Black women tend to code up, and that's actually benefited them. Well, some of them. So this idea, so first things first, I can tell you right now, he ain't coming to black women like he coming to us. That's number one. You don't come in there with some antagonistic bullshit. You come in, I already know that. Because this is what y'all typically do. And ultimately he's one of these guys that he believes that women are really not accountable for their actions, that anything a woman does is because, like I said, either because what men are, because remember, he says he views manhood from a collective standpoint. So what that tells you is he basically says that because black men didn't create the environment for black women to act right, then black women have every right not to act right. So everything a black woman does is due to what black men as a collective has done to black women or not done for black women. And because we're in a system of white supremacy, everything a black woman does is justified because it's just their response. This is how a lot of these niggas think. I mean, I had a Mary Brown on here. I mean, but that's what my initial thoughts are. I haven't read the article, so I could be completely wrong. I could look like an idiot. I could completely misjudge him. We're gonna see. But based on what I saw, that's what the fuck we're gonna give. So let me see if this shit is gonna actually allow me to do this and not be stupid. Okay, so I don't know why that wasn't showing it on YouTube. Fine, good that this is acting correct here. I'm glad. Okay, so let's go over here. This is from Omowale, and he needs to show how to say this. But this is on medium.com. Black women going their own way, a 21st century tale of two birds. Okay, so this was done in June 2020. So this is like the heart of the epidemic. So this is not even that far. This is like a little bit over a year old. And he wants to talk about Africa. So let's just go through it. An African centered critique of black women's empowerment, online gender wars, and the Hollywood elite pro miscegenation campaign. Blah 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 blah. Serena. To my daughter Naima, through your wisdom, courage, beauty, you continue to inspire me daily. Love, Dad. Okay, I bet you doesn't have a son, so you already know how I feel about niggas with just daughters. Introduction. As black writers, we're often tasked with exploring the most difficult questions pertaining to the future of our race. When done well, our explorations of racial phenomena should achieve one of two things. One, serve as a call to action for the current generation, or two, serve as a warning to the future one. The best writers in our tradition have always managed to accomplish both while simultaneously leaving an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. In an effort to carry forward such a rich tradition, I've often looked to their writings before attempting to broach certain topics of discussion. Let me see how far this shit goes, just to be very clear. Okay. Yeah, so this is gonna be a minute. This is gonna be a minute. One such matter is the relationship between black women and black men. and the contempt we've been socialized to have for one another. While this is a topic that has been discussed extensively over the past 50 years, the discussions have largely been framed in a manner that divorces the conflict from the global system of racial caste. Structural racism, said differently, the hostility between black women and black men is fundamentally rooted in systematic racism. However, this reality is often ignored in the dialogue. I mean, so this is so far no different than what he tried to say on Bernard Riley's situation show. Um, According to the late Dr. Francis Quest Welsing, white supremacy is a fundamental cause of the failed relationships between black males and black females, and our failure to analyze this dynamic deeply is a tragedy. So he just said in the last comment, and I'm not going to like interrupt this constantly, but he just said that this stuff has been covered extensively over the last 50 years. And now he's saying that failure to analyze this dynamic, right? Okay, so whatever. Usually, the following analysis, I'll attempt to demonstrate to the reader the ways in which the gender divide is maintained in our community by exploring the following. One, the link between black women's empowerment and white supremacy, the origins of gender conflict in black America, and three, the role of Hollywood liberal elite in their campaign to reproduce whiteness through miscegenation. One of the things I just want to make a quick comment is this dude kind of reminds me of Aaron Fontaine. He's trying to be taken so fucking seriously. And at the end of the day, we're trying to talk to our people. We're trying to talk to our people. And what are you trying to prove using all this elaborate language? Like, are you trying to get on TV? Are you trying to be seen as a serious person? Like, seriously. You know, this shit sounds like it's for the elite. This shit sounds like it's for like some college PhD motherfuckers. Let's just be clear here. They don't give a fuck about what's going on in the black community anyway. The link between black, that's the last time I'm gonna cut this unless something really is wild out because I want to get through this. The link between black men's empowerment and white supremacy. Let's see what this is. The cynical optimist, despite these bad experiences, it didn't stop them from trying again. I wish we were this persistent about amending our relationships with black men. Despite these, you can't mend that what's not there. The black gender ratio isn't a myth. Between 1980 2013, or probably two that black men have been killed. Okay, so that hasn't been that number that large. I'll go back to that. I don't want to lose track. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to read the above Twitter response from a popular natural hair blogger, Kimatu, whatever. I've included it here as an entry point to discuss the growing trend in black women's empowerment, BWE advocating for the dissolution of black women and black men as a pathway to freedom for black women. Yeah. The divester, hashtag divester die. Y'all be careful not to fall for this black women empowerment gender divide. Anyone who believes black women have a future apart from black men or vice versa is clearly delusional and pushing social death as a means of liberation. The biggest mistake black women continue to make is believing the black man's liberation is tied to their own. The biggest mistake black women continue to make is to believe the black man's liberation is tied to their own. It's not, especially when black males are invested in patriarchy, colorism, and access to white supremacy. Those three things destroy the lives of black women. Don't that shit sound like what he was saying about us? Don't that shit sounds like what he was saying about us? FYI. And if you notice the spirit in which he's talking to these women. While this is a nonsensical approach to dealing with issues created by structural racism, there's a growing stream of young and impressionable black women being brought into the movement every day. By no means will the writing serve as a stopgap measure to triage the bleeding of African women from African American collective. However, I do feel it necessary to provide an analysis of the BWE movement in a way that links it to longer arc of European vehicle, usually to manage the black population. I mean, I've already told him the black gynocracy is powered by white supremacy. The end. But he uses all this fucking words to try to make himself sound so fucking intelligent. I mean, oh my God, why is this important? According to Dr. Nada, Africana womanist lecturer and Black studies scholar, all discourse on relationships between men and women must be examined through the prism of white racial supremacy. If one fails to see that this is the dominant thrust of Western culture, then there will be no understanding of cultural underpinnings of relationships between Black men and Black women. Said differently, white supremacy as a system, multifaceted in its approach. Through the use of force, legislative, physical, and other, it imposes a myriad of systems on captive populations to organize society in a manner where the weak are subjected to the whims of the strong. Ultimately, these systems converge to ensure the white racial domination is maintained and the captive population is either eliminated, absorbed, or period of time. I don't disagree with this. The problem is he makes this shit sound a lot more complicated. And the problem is he comes at this from the perspective of you just need to educate Black women to not do this. Like, I mean, my God. If we've examined Black gender dynamics through this lens, we are more apt to understand how the dysfunction between Black men and Black women is not mere glitch in the matrix. It is a critical component of design. This understanding is clearly missing in the solutions proposed by architects of the BWE movement, and it's most certainly a fatal flaw in their analysis. The misuse of data in the BWE analysis. I'm not the typical Black man hating caricature you're used to. I've arrived at conclusions after careful consideration, thoughtfulness, and strategy based on data. Never my opinions alone. Never purely on anecdotes. I take Black women's lives and well-being seriously. It should be noted that I've previously written about the causes behind the Black gender gap as well as strategic intent behind its existence. I too have arrived at my conclusions after careful consideration, thoughtfulness, and strategy based on data. However, there is a stark difference between the types of data used in my analysis and the data used by KimmyTube. For instance, KimmyTube relies strictly on quantitative data produced by articles and sociological journals that highlight the disparities between Black women and their white counterparts. Exactly, because if you focus on women as they want to be equal, but they don't want to be compared equally to Black men because you realize they get a lot of advantages and Black men are really getting fucked. So they do that on purpose. And Kimmy's not dumb. She does that because that pushes a narrative. They all do it. That's that like academic class. Even though these disparities can be directly attributed to structural racism, Kimmy has never produced a critical analysis of white supremacy and its effects on the lives of well-being of Black women because she doesn't care. She doesn't care because, again, oh my God, man. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for a second. The problem I have with this article is he's actually, like, I want you to listen to the spirit in which he's kind of doing this article. He's one of these typical pro-Blacks that believe in like over. It's funny because he tries to act like patriarchy is oppressing women, but he's very paternalistic. I can tell that he looks at Black women through the eyes of his daughter. I can tell that because the way he talks is of a spirit of, they don't know what they do bullshit. But with men, he said he basically talks to us like we're very clearly, taking marching orders from white men. So therefore, we're part of the problem. And if you look at how he initially came into that conversation, brother, Xavier from Prophet of Thought. I mean, you got to look at the type of black men you had on it. You had a variety of different brothers, and it's bullshit. Like I say, this is why I could tell why J Speed liked him, because they're cut from the same fucking cloth. And this is why him and BGS fell out, because BGS just can't lie. He can't lie to himself. He just cannot do that. He can't do that. And J Speed sees that as a betrayal to whatever cause that you're supposed to lie for the protection of the cause. And this is why this shit keeps on happening over and over and over. Anyway, let's continue. To the contrary, she skirts the issue with structural racism and provides very little historical contextualization behind the statistical data used to reinforce her position. Black women should marry out as a means of upward mobility and survival. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like I said before, this is a part of being that buffer class. And he was laughing at me when I was saying this shit. But I mean, the part of being in the buffer class is basically divorcing yourself from what I'm gonna call true blackness, which means you basically go against your people, because that's what's required to fuck with them. Now the problem is the reasons why black men do this is very different than what black women do it. Black women do it because women fundamentally don't overturn societies; they nest in them. So they're generally going to do what's necessary for them to thrive in such society, what they believe to thrive in such society, and feminism is what they've chosen. Now that's short-sighted, but it is what it is. Black men, at the end of the day, this is why I talk about intercultural dating, because you can't because I'm gonna tell you, most black women think like this at some level. The only thing that keeps them from thinking like that is their sexual attraction to black men. But when you remove that, they tend to all default this way for the most part. In contrast, my arguments often supported by historical comparisons, quantitative data, and oh my God, he reminds me of I got the data, and the writings of black thinkers who have dedicated their lives to studying this problem. This problem that he says wasn't examined early in the article. My approach recognizes that both black men and black women are being crushed by the same structures, and it would be foolhardy of us to blame each other for the wounds. Here it is, for the wounds inflicted by this system. I try not to write in a way that is antagonistic to black women. Of course you don't. I said that because I understand that our closeness is essential to our survival as a people. Therefore, when I write about the relationship between black women and black men, it is always from a perspective that seeks to strengthen, heal, not disrupt the bond. Now, I want you to understand what he said with that. Let me go back through that sentence. I try not to write in a way that is antagonistic to black women because I understand that our closeness is essential to our survival as a people. Therefore, when I write about relationships between black women and black men, it is always from the perspective that seeks to strengthen, heal, not disrupt or bond. Now, I got a question for you. Does that sound like the nigga that tried to talk to us? He sounded like a nigga that wanted to real passive aggressively wag his finger at us. Now, keep in mind that most black men in the space, keep in mind, every black man, for the most part, every black man on that panel dates black women. Every black man on that panel dates black women. Every black man, Fantastic was married. Bernard was married. I'm trying to remember who's on that panel. Obsidian has said that he ain't dating nothing but black women. Right. I date all different kinds of women, but I mostly date black women. Trying to think who else was on that. I don't know about Kevin Sales. If you look at this space, but and by the way, you notice how there is nothing in this article so far about these women kissing ass of white women. I've often said that nobody is taking more from the black woman than the white woman. Nobody kisses the ass of the white woman more than the black woman. You notice how there's nothing in this article about this. He has not mentioned white women once. He talks about white supremacy in this very like amorphous bullshit. Because the reality is he's low-key trying to absolve, from what I'm reading, he's absolving black women of accountability. And he's trying to do what typical pro-blacks do, is try to make it like they don't know, or they don't know what they're doing, or they're misguided. That's why he talks about, like, it's delusional. It's like, these are ways of absolving black women from them making conscious choices in what they do. And we don't get this far unless they're active participants. And we'll see. Maybe he'll get back to it. But what did he say? I try to not be antagonistic to black women, because I understand. He also said in the previous sentence, my approach recognizes that both black men and black women are being crushed by the same structures, and it would be foolhardy to blame each other for our wounds. So again, black women actively blame black men for everything, and men accept that, because you don't really see this pushback outside of what we're doing on black women just constantly throwing black men under the bus. But you do see pushback that motherfuckers feel they have to make. And maybe he's had these discussions on his YouTube channel. I don't know. I doubt it though. Because these dudes tend to not go off script. Anyway. And he talk about, it's always from, so anyway, therefore, when I write about relationships with black women, black men, it's always from a perspective that seeks to strengthen, heal, not disrupt our bond. We don't have a bond anymore. And I think that's what people kind of refuse to kind of accept. This position is completely, and not a bond is based on anything real. And Obsidian has talked about this, about black people having choice, which is something they never had. So that shit is being tested for the first time, and I think black people don't like what they see, so that they're falling in a delusion. This position is completely antithetical to the stated aims and objectives of the BWE movement, as detailed below by prominent spokeswoman Eve Sharon Moore. Note, Black American Women is short for Black American Woman. Solutions. 1, more Black American women must marry out. I agree. Choose quality significant others from out groups as well. I agree. Form, support, and join intentional communities and our organizations that place a high priority on combining various resources and supporting the key interests of Black American women and similar others who support us, and separate mentally and, if possible, physically from other Blacks who won't support these solutions. I've been stressing these solutions from my earliest blogs back in 2006. At the very least, Black American women should see the vast majority of other Blacks as of no value or other minimum value, and never support them because they're not doing anything tangible to uplift Black American women. Doesn't this sound like how they went at Ice Cube when they was talking about what is it for Black women? See, the problem is most Black women think like this. Most Black men don't think like the manosphere. And the truth is, the manosphere is not necessarily rooted in wanting to marry out. We have a section that talks about that, and they're not really for marrying out. They're just about choosing culture first. But here's the difference. The difference that with these women don't, there's two things that really mess these women up. Number one is, once you marry out and you have mixed kids, you've changed the dynamic. Those women are not necessarily going to be tied to Black American women. And that's the problem. And that's what these women, and these women are not stupid. They understand that. So they're trying to make it sound better, but it is what it is. Secondly, I agree with Black women marrying out, because here's the truth. The truth is, if it's really, see, her whole dynamic is that Black women are victims of the culture, when in reality, Black women are the culture, the community is actually victims of Black female treachery. This culture is what Black women created it to be. I call it cultural disease, like HIV. And women are the ones that transfer the culture. Women are the ones that teach the children. And what you have is a couple of bougie bitches or wannabe bougie bitches like Karazin that try to act like they're they're a victim of this, but they want to put that on the men and not on the women that basically reinforce this at many class levels, which is why I call it the gynocracy. You know, he's making something, it's not complicated. And so what they want to do, and David Carroll talks about this, black women basically synced up with white women. White women took their resources that would have went to black men, and by definition, black women as well. Because if you look at the marriage rates, and basically black women have left the bag, and rather than coming to terms with that, what black women have done, it was a lot of black women are doing, they buy into this ideology that they're victims of it. Here's the problem: when they leave, because they're the carriers of this cultural virus, they take that bullshit over to them. This is what white men are complaining about. When white men talk about their women wanting to get asses and all this bullshit, that's that culture being exported. That's on them though. That's a byproduct of them allowing this shit to happen in the first place. And also, can these women actually get non-black men? That's the issue too. And this is where them not having a true understanding of their image fucks them up. This is where circling wagons around bad black women fucks them up, i.e. Sierra doing a quote-unquote classy twerk. You think other races don't see that? And not to mention, the white supremacy dictates that you got to keep it purely white anyway. So no matter what you do, you're never going to really deal with that and get around that in any big numbers. Versus the truth is, women are going to other races in order to try to be uplifted. Men are not really going to other. When men date out, they date out understanding that they have to overperform. Black women don't believe that. Even women like this, because they are a part of the cultural shit. I've said this before, and that before I continue, in that shit with Man of Steel, when Clark asked why his dad, the hologram, why didn't you come with it? Why you and mine come with it? And what did Jarrell say? He said, because even though I'm not as fucked up as Zod, I'm as part of the same shit that fucked the planet up as Zod is. So I would probably come over there and fuck the shit up too. So it needed to be a complete restart. And black women, because they want to be the victims in their own story, they don't understand that. And they understand it at a deep level, because that's why you don't see most of them go over there. Now, granted, what are they doing? This is where BGS's work in uncovering that there's a million kids that are unaccounted for by black men siring it, which means that black women are fucking, they're having kids outside of black men. But guess what? They're not getting married outside of black men, because that marriage number is still staying the same at like 5, 6, maybe 7%. So, I mean, he's not saying nothing that we haven't already said. But the problem is he tries to complicate the shit. So you got to really dig into where the bullshit is. A Tale of Two Birds. It is for this reason that I chose. Let me see if any of y'all did super chat. My bad. If y'all did super chat, I ain't see it. My bad. It is for this reason that I chose to frame my critique as a tale of two birds, the Egyptian proverb and European cuckoo to be exact. Oh my god. How much of this shit do I have? This is some shit Obsidian does. This is Obsidian. I'm not talking about he does this. I'm saying he's the one that reads these. I mean, like, dude, you're made like this shit is like so much. This shit is like does not need to be this fucking complicated, dude. You make this so much you make this so complicated. This is like you just want to be taken seriously so bad. And I mean, if you're trying to say this to like college folks, fine, but let's go. The function of these two birds play in nature is very different. The plover functions as a healer and flies into the mouth of the alligator, dangerous terrain, to remove bacteria from its teeth. The cuckoo, on the other hand, is a predator and preys on the unsuspecting birds who built their own nests. When the expecting mother leaves her nest unattended, the cuckoo swoops in and lays her own egg. When the cuckoo's hatchling emerges from the egg, it tosses the eggs of the unsuspecting mother from the nest. The mother will nurse the baby cuckoo until it's ready to leave the nest, unaware that the life of her own progeny was ended before it even started. In this way, the actions of cuckoo closely mirror the aims and objectives of Black women's empowerment movement. These women prey on unsuspecting sisters and enlist them as unconscious agents in the reproduction of white supremacy. Sure, but the difference is they're not unsuspecting. See, again, he wants to give passes but notice how he doesn't see. This is so now we're starting to understand that he sees us as the male version of the black women's empowerment movement. And basically what he's saying is we're doing this to unsuspecting brothers. This is basically what he's essentially saying, I guess. What he doesn't understand is we BGS is our resident, pro-black. We have pro-blacks in our in the manosphere, in the black manosphere. BGS would shut all this bullshit down. I don't think he really wants to talk to BGS. I would love for this guy to have a one-on-one with BGS. I don't think he really wants to talk to BGS. I don't think he does. He may think he does, but I don't think he does. And the truth is, I don't even think he really wants to talk to Obsidian either. This is not all that uncommon within the black BWE movement. He makes it sound like this is some new shit too. The BWE movement is black feminism, just like whatever new wave. That's all it is. Like, you make this shit sound like this shit is some brand new shit. You notice how he's yet to talk about black women. I guess this is what his definition of black women goes their own way. The truth is, black women have been having sexual access to white men for a long time. They just want to make it known. It's important to understand that discussions of race and racism within the BWE movement are avoided at all costs. In fact, denial of racism is a common theme amongst black parties' interracial pairings. Yeah. And this is why I got really pissed the fuck off that I didn't get pissed off. I actually didn't get pissed off. Like, I got mad at what happened on that. I didn't get on that other panel. But when Fantastic kind of interrupted my line, see, this is the thing. You can't deal with this guy from from the race. It's more about class than race bullshit. This is not, honestly, this conversation is not for Bernard or Fantastic. Because they're just going to be like, you're pro-black, the end. And they don't, and Fantastic in particular doesn't really have the views, because all he's going to do is argue against it, versus I'm the type of person that can, for this argument, this is for the Igmores to deal with, because we can prove that even on a pro-black argument, the shit still doesn't move. Even if we talk, because we had this race discussion. And this is, again, where you have to understand the black manosphere is very multifaceted. And see, he tends to want to look at it one way. And a lot of these guys, they talk about a lot of shit. See, and that's another thing too. What they try to do is and he's trying to say that we're the equivalent. I told you, and Jason Black says this too, that we basically do the same thing with white men that black women do with basically white women through feminism. We're just basically copying, and that's actually not true. That's not true at all, because a lot of the things that black women talk about is actually real for us. And my thing that I always come back to it is, this is not our community. We don't influence and we don't control it. And BTS said this also. He said black men are going to have to be honest. He said this about George and about Gab, all of them. They're going to have to be honest about the sacrifice they expect black men to make. Because what they really expect is for generations of black men to just suffer through it. And no matter what the black bitch does, you just deal with it. Period. That's what he expects. And Jay Speed expects the same thing. They never want to say that because they understand how bad that sounds. They understand how bad that sounds. And they understand if they say it like that, a lot of motherfuckers will be like, all right, well, thanks, but no thanks. If there's any one singular indictment that I can point to regarding the leaders of the BW movement, it would be their complete and utter disregard for the historical events that have shaped our present condition. Yeah, because those are inconvenient truths. I believe it was Dr. Carter G. Woodson who once stated, the conditions of today have been determined by what has taken place in the past. When it comes to current state of affairs between black women and black men, our assessment of the past should be determining factor. behind any recommendations proposed to the group. If our recommendations are lacking, or in the case of BWG, woefully inadequate, it is in large part due to our failing to take a sober account of the epochs that have preceded us. A lack of historical memory will retard the upward mobility of any race of people, but a false historical memory is even more damning. A historical trap. Over the last 50 years, there's been a small contingent of writers in academia who set themselves to the task of revising history relationships between black men and black women. This project, which, by the way, all these writers are under a feminist, white feminism. This project was largely a response to accusations of erasure of black women by black men during the civil rights movement, but it marked a paradigmatic shift in black gender relations that completely shifted the tide. It's important that we start with this project because it set in motion an intra-community divide that didn't exist prior to 1970s based on firsthand accounts of women from that period. I mean, dude, it is not that complicated, man. Black women it's just like how the Bush administration created legal frameworks and situations to justify what they did in the war in Iraq to make that work. It's the same thing. They create reasons that are just like how this dude is making this article very hard to read. And it's not about reading big words. I have a big vocabulary. But the thing about it is he's just going he's doing too much. He's doing too much. He's doing too much. He's doing too much trying to make you seem like he's this fucking thought leader. I hate people that try to act like they're so fucking smart, but the shit they saying is very basic. Basically, these women are creating reasons for them to divest from the black community that they, by the way, fucked up. So exhibit A was black women fucking up the culture. Exhibit B is basically creating a continuous like feedback loop where black women are divorcing black women are divorcing black men at 80%. Black men are aborting children at the overwhelming numbers they're doing. We could even argue black women are helping a lot niggas up. We can argue that black women are so. I mean, you cannot argue. And the thing about it is, all these men will say that these women are justified, and they try to create their reasons. But ultimately, they think because black men are in a country where white men are quote unquote at the top, then for that very reason, black men are accountable for it. So anything the black bitch does is somehow comes back on the black men. That's what a lot of these guys think. Like, that's really the long and short of it. And until black men overthrow white supremacy at 6% of the fucking population, then we should basically suffer through this shit. That's essentially the long and the short of it. And we can make all these words and make all this shit, but it's always going to come back to that. And they do all this shit in order to not have to have that conversation. IGMOR stands for Introspective Black Men of Reform. That's where BGS IGMOR comes from, but BGS is not the original IGMOR, but he is one of the more popular content creators of it. Black Ram is also another popular one. Grizzly is also another one. The exception to this rule came in the early 70s when the aforementioned group of writers began the construction of new narrative and pitted the black male against the black female in a collective fight for liberation. With the gender line drawn, black men were depicted as misogynistic rapists and tools of white supremacy, while black women were cast as willing victims and unappreciated workhorses of the race. This is where that black backbone of black community bullshit. He tries to make it sound like this is just some black women, and he really undercuts the fact that black women buy into this today at some level. This is loose band of writers. See how he talks about these loose band of writers? Like, he tries to make it like he tries to minimize the kinetic impacts of this shit. Like, this is just a couple of writers and all this other bullshit. This loose band of writers laid the foundation for what would become the modern day black feminist movement. The black feminist movement existed prior to the 1960s. By the end of the 70s, the black feminist movement goes all the way back to like Sojourner Truth. and you can call it modern, but whatever. They were officially recognized as authorities on all the discourse. Basically, what he's talking about was what I call the modern version of the gynocracy. You know, gender dynamics, while still a very small segment within our collective, this group received significant institutional support and amplification for their doctrine of racial suicide. What unfolded over the next 3 decades, and by the way, FYI, this is the shit Obsidian was actually trying to have a conversation about, which he kept on dodging. What unfolded, because Obsidian wanted to have a conversation over the last 40 years, and this goes back to the 50 years, and this is a conversation he didn't want to have. So Obsidian's going to be real interested in this article. What unfolded over the next 3 decades was an unrelenting war between black men and black. See, that's the bull. That is the bullshit. No. That's not what happened. It was not a war between black men and black women. It was black women basically being on a campaign unchallenged by black men, throwing us under the fucking bus. So to say it's a war would be to say that black men shot their shots too. So what I would ask this good sir is, what the fuck in this time between 1970 and 2000, what did black men do to black women? Shout out to Mr. Research, talking about all the love songs black men were making about black women. You can see it in the music. The shit was one way. It was not both ways. But see, you know, pro-black games dictate we can never make it so it's all black women's fault. It's always got to be both of our fault. But with black men, it can be all black men's fault. He said war. So you show me any anti-black female films in the 80s and 90s. Books and films during the late 80s, daytime television in late 90s, and finally internet, social media in early 2000s, early 2010s. For the most part, black men remain on the defensive for the first 2 decades. Okay, so he acknowledged, well, defensive, that's actually not true either. Black men, how did black men defend themselves? That's what I would ask him. Give me an example of a black man defending himself, like of a book, a work. Give me an example. Motherfuckers like people like Dr. T.S. Johnson, Green Gorilla, you know, Dr. Tony Curry. These people didn't exist back then. The only person you could say maybe was Shahrazad Ali, and she wasn't really defending black men. She was just saying, well, hold up, black women got to be looked at as well. But I'll put her in a category. But other than that, what do you really have? Now, the following video shows one of the rare cases black men were given a platform to counter a racial archetype. Okay, he's talking about Dr. Fiat Newton. But my point is, you're talking about a 90%, 10 percentile. That's not a war. That's like calling the war in Afghanistan a war. That's not a war. That's an occupation. There's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference between going to war and doing a campaign. Even today, we like to characterize the quote-unquote gender war. But if you look at, like, you're talking about motherfuckers on YouTube. You don't really see what we do in like really anywhere in social media like that outside of YouTube. But you see black women are overwhelmingly everywhere on mainstream media and everything. You look at these writers for books, it's really not a comparison, but we gotta make it an equal comparison, because then you be looking at where the real problem is, and we can't do that because that's gonna put too much onus on the black female. What was far more common, especially during the last decade of the 20th century, was the endless parade of black women being broadcast. Exactly. So I don't know why you said it was a war. It wasn't a war. It wasn't a war then. Why did you say that? So you clearly know that no. See, this is what I'm saying. Words mean things. For you to use all these big words, the intention behind them is bullshit. You should have said that black women, the BWE, a black feminist, ran a campaign on black men, because the reason why this got this bad is because black men did not push back hard enough, because black men like you had this belief that it's about we, when black women were on some it's about me. And then now it's so overwhelming to the point where these dudes can't even think straight. They don't know where to start. So they always default to wanting to give a history lesson, as if you're going to educate. You're not going to educate these females. The females that are like this are not going to be educated out of this. That's why the manosphere is never taken that, or the black manosphere has never taken that approach. We sit there and we show you, you hate your decisions. These are decisions that you made without us. And these are your results. That's what Obsidian does, and that's what a BGS does. We don't sit there and try to educate these women because these women don't give a fuck about that. They really don't. They feel like understanding this shit is a burden. The white men are nicer and take better care of me. Argument is displayed in the video above. Its talking point, this still has conversational currency in today's online set. Absolutely it does. And this is why black women, when you deal with Chad Wheeler situations and stuff like that, black women will go out of their way to not talk about that because it's a narrative, because it's bad faith. And this is why I often say, I'm not going to go through an endless debate because that's wasting my time. What I'm going to do is say, okay, well, all y'all that want to date a white man, black men are not stopping you. All of y'all that want to date out, I encourage you to date out, because see, when you date out, now you got to take, black men can't be a part of that conversation anymore, unless you're just going to outright lie, and it's going to be so overwhelmingly obvious that, you know, because here's the thing, if y'all are constantly talking about black men and y'all are with these non-black male mates, they're going to feel a certain type of way eventually about you doing that. Because men understand when men can't keep other men out, when women can't keep other men's names out their mouth, that means there's something there. See, black women want to date out, but they don't want to move on, because their identity as to who they are is rooted in that nigga did this to me. Because truthfully, a lot of these women hate being black, and they blame black men for being black. The scales always even out. As the old adage says, chickens always come home to roost. In the first decade of the new millennium, they came home with a vengeance. The black men who came of age in the previous 2 decades will finally have a chance to repay the offense. We're not repaying the offense for telling the truth. There's a difference. And the debt would not go unpaid. In the early days of YouTube, there were quickly arose a small group. Look at this. In the early days of YouTube, there quickly arose us. Now, remember, I want y'all, before I continue, he wrote this about a year and 2 months ago. What did I say? I told you at the beginning, I did not read this. You know I didn't read this long bullshit. Look at the spirit. Pay attention to how he's talked in his article about black women empowerment, basically black female divestors. Pay attention to how he's talking to them, and pay attention to what he's about, and pay attention to how he acted on Bernard. And here's the thing, Bernard was a married man. Bernard fought for his kids. Bernard was Bernard was a prototypical good black man, 5'10" or 6 foot, not a small dude. None of the bullshit that people like to throw at motherfuckers. A great salt of the earth, go-getting black man. Boom. Put him on the fucking cover of a Wheaties box, right? And so Bernard is not an extremist at all. That's not what he brands himself to be, and that's not who he is. And he still dates black women. After divorce, after he had to fight for his kids. This is where he chose to say what he said on, right? And so you saw how he acted. Now, this is a year ago, and this is what he writes. In the early days of YouTube, there quickly arose a small group of black men cells, amassing a huge following, which is actually not true. That's not true in the early days of YouTube, based on their shared hate for black women. Now, notice that in all this fucking bullshit I've had to read, he never used hate. He never said black women hate black men. He's characterized it as black women being misguided, and they're being misguided by bad actors that are black women. But even then, he's not saying that these women hate black women. These women hate black men, even the ones that are influencing other women. He tries to act like they're misguided. I haven't read this article, my dude. I haven't read. This is the first time, because he just shared it. Like, real talk, he literally shared it, and maybe 10 minutes later, I decided to, I said, fuck it. Because I was actually in front of my computer working on some shit. And I said, fuck it, I'm gonna put this shit down and we're gonna go through this shit because I want yep. And if you look at the time of when it was shared, so I didn't have time to read this shit first. So you're all, and this is before he engages with us. So when he came on Bernard shit, he already had his peg. He already had his he already had his he already had his thoughts, which is why we said, and Xavier said it, he was talking in bad faith. He want to act like that's bullshit. That's why he was coming up there. Yeah, man, real man conduct himself. I'm like, nigga. And the reason why I do this is because I'm not going to defend myself. I'm who the fuck I am. You can take it or fucking leave it. But you got Fantastic. You got Bernard. You have dude, like, you cannot put those tropes on them. You cannot call Mr. Fantastic a man cell. You cannot call Bernard a man cell. You cannot call Obsidian a man cell. But see, this is the mentality he chose to come on Bernard's panel with who was on there with. Because remember, I wasn't on there at first. And I was the nicest one out of all of them, to be honest with you. And this is why it's important for Jay Speed, because when Jay Speed said what he said to a peer in Pablo, and he sat there and said, yo, banana spit, this is what these niggas think. And they try to act like they so intelligent and so smart, but they still come back to the same bullshit. And then he talks about imagining he's no, I mean shit. Like 25% of Obsidians of Tommy Sotomayor's following, which by the way, Tommy's always been his own person, are black women. Shout out to Nurse Nerd, who's married, said she listened to Tommy. So I mean, this bullshit. Anyway, there's a strange irony to their emergence, in that Michelle Wallace paints a similar picture as the initial cause of the conflict between black women and black men during the civil rights movement. I mean, to be honest with you, Jason Black has covered that. Everybody, BGS has covered that. Black women have this. See, black women, like, this shit predates the civil rights movement. That's the problem. And what a lot of people don't talk about with the civil rights movement is black women basically bought the idea. See, this is what doesn't get talked about. Well, people talk about it every once in a while, but black women betrayed their race, and they betrayed black men, and they betrayed future black women. They set black women up on this path by siding with white women, and a lot of the wealth gap that you see is a result of that. So what guys like Omowale will do is he'll focus on white supremacy and not focus on the treachery part. Because any other group does that shit, there will be a reset. I'll leave you to your imagination of what that would look like. I'll say this for here so y'all don't think I'm talking about violence. Those women will be excommunicated from the community. And quite frankly, you never really see anything a black woman does that warrants that, which is why I did the video, what do black women need to do to not be forgiven? If any of y'all did a Cash App or something, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through this. This is a lot of shit, man. Anyway, the following excerpt is from her book Black Macho. In this particular excerpt, she's explained. So even keep in mind, he's throwing us under the bus, even when he's supposedly holding black women accountable. Think about that. The following excerpts from her book Black Macho. In this particular excerpt, she's explaining how black men responded to black women when they were finally given the opportunity to assert their manhood during the 60s. Michelle, which was, by the way, ain't no man cells back then. Michelle's arguing that black men of the period felt as though they were being maligned by their women who had worked in tandem with white men to cripple work against betraying and laugh at scorn at them. Yes, what I said. There was a misunderstanding between black men and black women, a misunderstanding as old as slavery. The IOU was finally being called in. Apart from some occasional drunken ranting on a street corner, the black man held his silence admirably for centuries. The Moynihan Report, as preposterous of a document as it was, of course, because this is back then when black... That tells you all you need to know. And keep in mind, this is not him writing it. This is a quote. Combined with the heady atmosphere of the times to loosen the black man's tongue, This report did not create hostility. It merely helped to bring the hostility to the surface. Released in 1979, Black Macho became one of the founding texts of Black feminism. If we take Wallace's work to be true, the response from Black men in early 2000 may very well mark the start of the second wave of gender conflict in the Black community. I mean, it's not a conflict because, quite frankly, Black men are just telling their side of the story. And really, what it comes down to is you either want to commit, like BGS said, you either want a community or you fucking don't. And I'm not, and Black men are not playing games with you. That's really all this is. Um, it was present day conflict on social media has taken the long-standing internecine war of genders to new heights. It doesn't take too much to see the online arena will be final frontier in the battle of the sexes, and an astute observer will assure you that after the dust settles, white supremacy will be the final outcome. Through the use of clever hashtags like "Not My Mule," "Divest or Die," and "Burn the Cape," and Black femcel community has enlisted a new crop of unsuspecting young women into the suicidal war. What's most unseemly about their methods of recruitment is that the young girls being recruited have often experienced real trauma. This emotional pain is manipulated to convince potential recruits that Black men have rejected, abandoned, or betrayed them. Much like the men cell counterparts, feelings of betrayal seems to be activated agent of that sends them to front lines of the gender war with embers of hate set ablaze in their hearts. The new recruits are deployed to the timeline, release their harvest of rage. You notice how he keeps on wanting to compare and contrast. He keeps on wanting to equalize what we do and what they do. You notice that? Every day on Twitter, there are new accounts appearing. They're solely dedicated to purpose. Yeah, and you don't see that. You don't see that with Black men. You see, we're being challenged, and we're open to having conversations with people. See, a guy like Omowale is not going to be able to go in these clubhouses and say the bullshit that he's saying and be heard. They're going to shut him down. They're not going to hear him out. He want to come on us thinking we were shutting his ass down. No, they would just kick him out quickly. He wouldn't even be able to say nothing. The problem is Amelie has this thing where he likes to talk, because what he's really trying to do is he's not really trying to put it out there, put all cards on the table. What he's really trying to do is convince you of his ideology rather than just letting that shit stand on its own. See, we let the shit we talk about stand on its own. He don't. These agents of chaos take great pleasure in driving wedges deep between Black men and Black women. Okay, so this is Dr. Johnson that he put up. In a weak Black community. Oh my God. Let me see what the fuck. Let's go there because after rebranding themselves as Paragon Civility, Humanitarian, the white liberal elite. Yeah, David Carroll said, okay, that's pretty much it. David Carroll said the same bullshit. I mean, well, not bullshit. David Carroll said the same thing. He kept it simple. So if any of y'all want to come up real quick to kind of have a conversation about what we heard, I'll invite you all to do that. Notice how, but think about it. Notice how like he's referring, like, again, the women are misguided, the men are, the men, they just hate women. He didn't, and that all bullshit, he did not once say that Black women hate Black men. He did not once say that. But he was quickly to but for him, if you're not kissing the Black female's ass, you must hate them. If you don't date them, you must hate them. Anything, you must hate them. So anyway, let's see who wants to come up. That's the article. It's in the description, but if you want it, here you go. I appreciate it. Son is a hot rod. I need a super chat after reading all that shit. Pro blacks will use every outlandish excuse to explain the conditions of the black community, except the truth, which is black women are totally and completely out of order for any race of men to deal with. Absolutely. And you could argue, you could say white supremacy is at the top, but the issue, you can say that, and fine, I'm not going to disagree with that. But at the end of the day, you all just don't want to deal with black women head on. What you want to do is try to circle around that, as if black women have no choice in what they do or listen to what they listen to. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I don't even know why he's over here, because he's not going to win that argument over here. If he wants to go ahead, like Sean Netta is trying to be in the manosphere, he can go ahead and be over there. He's recruiting channels that fucks with him. But the reality of the situation is, and here's another thing too, that is the first. See, this is where he's full of shit. The first, black manosphere 1.0 was very open in having dialogue between black women. Very open in that. There wasn't really the quote unquote gender war. That was really coming from black women. And then we like to say that black men if a black man dates out, he's gender warring with women. No, he's not. So that's the first thing what he says is not true. When he tried to talk about that's not true what he's saying. And that shit didn't even happen on Blog Talk like that. That's number one. Number two, when he talks about like how we can't, like we got hurt again, fantastic, divorce, Bernard, divorce. These are not dudes that sound like they're hurt. Me, I came this way. I came into the manosphere. And when I say pro, I was in the economically pro-black as well as the tribal communities. And then I came into black manosphere. I haven't been hurt by black women, and we still date black women. How do we hate black women? We still date black women. There's a lot of dudes in our space that are married to black women. I look forward to that video with the lead attorney and Lauren. Y'all should check Lauren out on the lead attorney. Looking very attractive from the LaPeef show. Like, the shit that y'all project onto us is the shit a lot of these black bitches, these angry black bitches be projecting onto us. Y'all think like them in a lot of ways. I mean, he ain't gonna build it over here. I mean, he can. I mean, his stuff. Number one, he don't got talent. I mean, I hate to say that, be O'Shea like that, but the thing about it is, this is coming from a nigga that talks a lot. That motherfucker, he said the shit he says is redundant as hell. I'm not. Look, man. Most folks are. What? All right, Charles. I mean, I'm not. Whatever. If people want to get married, let them get married. Sure, it is with the right woman. With the right ingredients, a lot of things work. The link is down there for anybody to want to pop up. So don't say it wasn't in there. It won't let me like go through his channel. I don't feel like having to come back in this motherfucker again. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about, articles and all of, like, he thinking like I hate these dudes. Yeah, I just want to be taken seriously. I want to write articles, and do all these big words, and all this shit. I'm like, dude, we're just trying to communicate with our people, man. I believe in communication. I don't believe in, and then motherfuckers like, well, yeah, these are men cells and all of this. I mean, are you serious, nigga? Because, and the thing about it is, the thing he needs to understand is, when you calling dudes incels or man cells, you think like a bitch. And I'm just saying, that's how bitches think. Because they're talking from their womb when they say stupid shit like that. It's like, are you serious? You sound like fucking Tasha K. Like, even when he came in and talked about semen-filled pills, I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, for real. No, because if black men are sexually attracted to black women, that's going to be tampered. But black women can hate black men and want to fuck black men at the same time. See, that phenomenon, you don't see that in black men like that. But you see that in black women. They hate the niggas they are sexually attracted to. And a lot of dudes don't understand that. That's the imprint working. That's what that is. I mean, all these dudes operate the same way. All these dudes, like you saying, he's Jared Ball. All these niggas operate the same way, man. Umar, all of them. That's why Umar never put that YouTubian list together, because at the end of the day, a lot of these folks are trying to pseudo market, but they out here looking goofy. Yeah, like because real talk, you come into a group of men talking about you taking semen filled pills, you're gonna get slapped. Somebody's gonna slap the shit out you. And this is why when I talk, I try to the way I talk is how I would talk to you in person. I don't sit there and try to be flamboyant with the language and shit, because that's not what I would do in real life. Now, if you say something stupid, I'm gonna point that point out, because I do that in real life. Well, he don't know what the thing about it is. He doesn't look at us as people. He looks at us as he looks at us as an organization. And his problem, he got the same problem that Jason Black has with us. He's trying to compete for quote unquote hearts and minds. Most black men on this motherfucker, most black men in this space is really not even trying to grow a channel like that. What we're trying to do is we're just putting the shit out there as we see it, and setting the record straight. That's it. We're not really into, okay, we're going to say what we need to say in order to grow a following. If that was true, we would talk a lot more about celebrity shit, because I'm going to take a lot of the shit I talk about and wrap it around celebrity certain topics and shit in order to grow the channel. But that's not really what drives what we do here. And also, this idea that we hate black women, that's a cop out. That's something that people always like to say, because you're trying to format the conversation. See, in his mind, there's no such thing as a black woman that hates a black man. But it's so easy for black men to hate black women. And you know why they say that? Because that's really code for, well, black women aren't giving you pussy, so you're sexually frustrated. So you're venting that sexual frustration. That's why I lump both of them together with Jay Speed. Because Jay Speed went, well, your nuts are heavy and your dick is hard. You know what to do. Well, yeah, that's what a lot of these niggas say. Because this is a way for these dudes, and Anton is trying to be smart, lump some other people in, because Anton ain't smart slick. He's trying to create a buffer. That's all he's trying to do. He's not dumb. But a lot of these guys, like, this Highlander syndrome. A lot of black men don't know how to interact with other black men. That's probably one of the, a lot of black men don't know how to interact with other black men. They interact like black men like females. They really do. Well, a lot of dudes say motherfuckers hate women, because again, when black men say that anybody says in the black community, when anybody says that black men hate black women, what they're saying is you don't get pussy from black women, so you're sexually frustrated. That's actually what they're communicating. I've never really disclosed that, but I'm very aware that that's what they're communicating when they say that. And rather than just saying that straight up, they say it sideways. So in their eyes, we hate women. Now, what's crazy about that is the black manosphere mainly fucks black women, and and there's quite a few guys in the black manosphere that are married to black women. Most of the niggas, if they're married to black women in our space. And so this idea of, motherfuckers hating, and when you look at most of the top dudes in the space, Angry Man, BGS, Obsidian, O'Shea, they only date black women. They only date black women. You look at most of the top heavy hitters, the actual people that got influence in our space for the most part. But see, they don't care about that because they look at it from a, we're just talking at you standpoint. Now, with the women, they don't do that. And this is how I know where the bullshit starts. So anyway, y'all, I'm gonna end this. So, but I don't know. Angry Man is black. Angry Man is not Spanish. I don't know about that. I'm not even gonna go into that. But anyway, appreciate it. Been a great video. That being said, this is Edward. I'm signing off. Peace.